Catalonia. It's a place that resists being defined. Beautiful? Of course. But it's also mysterious. Tall, wide mountains framing deep, narrow valleys. Tiny stone villages overlooking pastures full of grazing horses. I was visiting one of those towns today, but I wouldn't get there without ending up taking the long way. In other words, I got lost. But there are worse things than turning a 1-hour drive through the Pyrenees into 4 hours, that's for sure. Eventually I reached my destination, a 1,500-year-old village about an hour and a half from Barcelona that was once a significant principality in this region, Besalú. I am finally here at my destination of Besalu. I have to climb this wall. The name Besalu comes from a Latin word that means fort on a hill between two rivers, and accordingly, you have to cross a Romanesque bridge to enter the town. When you reach the other side, it's like time has stood still for 1,000 years. On this early spring day, the promise of rain may have been keeping the crowds away, and walking the narrow cobblestone streets was like stepping back in time. At the time it was founded in the 10th century, Besalú was an important town in the region and influential in Catalan politics. Even today, you'll see residents expressing their strong Catalan heritage and desire to regain their independence from Spain. Tying a yellow ribbon around a tree or a balcony or something means something very different here in Catalonia than it does in the United States. What it actually symbolizes here is a movement for liberty and freedom for the Catalonia people and for the region of Catalonia. And you see it everywhere. So it's a very popular movement. I'm not sure how many people believe in it, but in the village I was in today, it was pretty much 100%. There are lots of great cafes and shops here selling artisan products, and the narrow cobbled streets are perfect for strolling and soaking up the atmosphere. Hoofing it up and down the hills worked up an appetite, and as an afternoon shower broke, I took cover on the bridge and dove into a sandwich I'd brought with me. I just wonder how many times in the 1,000 years that this town has been here that some guard has been underneath this wall eating a sandwich and trying to stay dry from the rain. Countless, I'm sure. I'll just call that random thoughts while eating a ham sandwich. I'd planned an afternoon visit to the ancient Iglesia de San Pere, but as stores began to shutter, I remembered something, and I hurried over to the church. But as luck would have it, the last time I was in Barcelona back in 1997, they used to siesta from like 2 to 4 o'clock, and I learned some hard lessons with that. I was surprised to see when I came back on this trip that they don't do that anymore in Barcelona. However, they still do that here in Catalonia in many places. They don't call it siesta, it's more like an afternoon break, but it's the same thing. And I thought that I could count on coming to the church during the rain, so I put it off. Of course it's 2:15 and dude's off for siesta, so I'm not gonna see the church. Always remember, check the siesta schedule when in Catalonia. Even though I had let the newer customs they observe in Barcelona fool me, my disappointment didn't last long. In a town this size, it wasn't long before I ran into the custodian who told me a large group of Italian tourists was coming. He was opening up for them, and if I came back in 15 minutes, he'd let me in with them. Score. The ancient Iglesia de San Pere was constructed in 977, and exactly 1,000 years later, I would dance to the Bee Gees at my 8th grade dance. It has been renovated to its present appearance. Of course, that was over 800 years ago, but still, they did fantastic work back in 1167, don't you think? The church as is over 900 years old, and it feels like it. Once the tourists left, I hung around to feel the quiet of 1,000 years. And I have to be honest, it was a little bit eerie in here. A strange combination of the very familiar and the very primitive that made this one of the most interesting churches I've ever been in.
The Iglesia de Samba is unique to other churches that I've seen here in Spain in that they seem to have left it completely in its original condition. There's been a couple of modifications as far as the altar, but everything else seems like they haven't touched a thing since it was built 1,000 years ago.
There's also a significant Jewish history in Besalu, with worthwhile sites as well. But the ancient mikveh that exists here was unfortunately closed the day I visited. This little Catalonian town on top of a hill between two rivers is one of the best kept secrets in Europe. I got lost on my way to Besalu, but I left feeling like I'd discovered something.